Hello, and welcome to Software Technology Group's workshop on why Java 21 matters for your company and your software development. I am Martha McKay, Director of Marketing at Software Technology Group. We are joined by CEO at Complete Programmer, former Director of Practice Management at Software Technology Group, and Pluralsight author Brian Hansen. And we're excited that you're here today, Brian, to talk with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. So I think first of all, just right out of the gate, my question for you is, if I'm a company who's currently utilizing Java 8 or Java 11 on my applications, why would I want to migrate from Java 8 or 11?
Definitely. So one of the things people might not realize is Java 21 is the next long-term supported version, or the LTS. You'll hear it referred to as an LTS version. And that is being released in September of 2023. So coming up really quick. In fact, by the time you're hearing this, it may have already been, published and come out. And I think this kind of caught people off guard because historically they would put a date out there and maybe didn't hit the date because they go through what's called the JCP, or the Java Community Process, which takes time and buy-in for people to sign off on this. And to go back to your question about why this matters, well, there are a lot of companies that I run into out there. I'm working with one right now that have applications out there on Java 11. Java 11's support, its feature support, ends at the end of September 2023. The security patches for it will keep going for a couple of years, but you're going to be on an unsupported feature version and an unsupported security version very quickly. And at the rate that you develop applications and the time it takes to QA them and roll them all out, you're looking at this going, oh, I got a couple of years. You really don't. You have 18 months maybe before they're no longer supporting security patches on the JVM for the version that you're using, if that's Java 11. Java 8, which is kind of odd, actually has a longer security patch life out there, but the feature support for that has long since ended. It was almost 2 years ago that the feature support of that has ended. So there's companies out there that are still trying to upgrade to Java 17, realize that the feature support for that is also ending in 3 years. They're getting on an aggressive schedule to roll these LTSs out now, and that hasn't been the case historically. So if you're kind of going off of how it used to be, that's no longer the case. They've got a very much more aggressive rollout schedule now than what they used to have for Java. And so a lot of your products that are out there that were on an older version, you don't have this luxury of hanging out there as long as you did, especially if you want security patches on there. And security breaches and cybersecurity are a huge impact for companies these days. So it's definitely something to keep at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, for sure. So is that something, I mean, I know you and I have talked before about, when Sun, sold to Oracle and some of those things. Is that part of the reason why some of these, the more aggressive schedule now is because they're kind of getting on top of that, where historically after they bought, it wasn't?
Definitely. And this is, I will say that this is more my opinion than it is some factual thing that's published out there. But when Sun Microsystems was bought out by Oracle, Oracle wanted to keep the product around, and one, so that .NET Microsoft wasn't a monopoly in the object-oriented programming space. And so the community said, we've got to keep this around. And Oracle, love them or hate them, they stepped up and said, we'll buy the product. And there were a lot of people that were waiting for the other shoe to drop of, what are you going to do with it now? Are you going to start charging for it? Are you going to start doing these weird things with it? What are you going to do? Well, Oracle basically did nothing with it. In fact, a lot of your people that are upgrading to JDK 17 have actually switched over to OpenJDK, which is an open source version of it. And Oracle's like, we're fine with that. We're part of the JCP. We're part of the Java Community Process. But I think there was this lag there for years where people were waiting to see what was going to happen next with Java. And now we have this robust JCP process. It's still a slow-moving machine. Don't hear me wrong there. But we have this robust process that has all of the major companies contributing back to it now. So you'll see companies that have somebody on the board for a specific JSR or Java specification request, and they're contributing and feeding into that. And that has changed significantly over the past 5 to 10 years, where we didn't have that before. It was this slow moving corporate machine that pushed stuff out when they wanted to. Well, that's not the case anymore. So.
Okay. So now that you're getting, more of these pushed out every couple years, these updates of Java, so if you're a company that's utilizing some of these older versions, that's a huge thing for you, not only security wise, but for your application. There's not a supported product anymore. You need to move on
Definitely.
from that, right?
Yes. And to expound on that a little bit, you may say, oh, this is an internal app. We don't care. This is hosted on this service. I don't care. One of the things that has changed with Java 17 and Java 21 is the nature in which we do rapid application development with it. And historically, you would have never said that Java is a fast to develop language. In fact, you would have said the opposite of that it's a very slow, very laborious language. The differences in Java 17 and 21, namely, are the libraries that also have been upgraded to that. So if I want to use the latest versions of, say, Spring Framework or some of the other dependency injection tools, or I want to use some of the newer features in Hibernate and JPA, well, I've got to be on a more recent version of that. And just the other day, I was standing up a new application for a sample, and I literally built an application that would produce RESTful services, had security on it, was its own self-contained application tied with the Java Persistence API with an in-memory database deployed in about 25 minutes. Beginning to end, 20 to 25 minutes. Honestly, 5 years ago, to do that same thing would have been me copying and pasting libraries and grabbing stuff from other places. So all of these tools that we're using now have matured significantly to where it honestly, from a cost perspective, makes sense to upgrade to these. And I realize that that's kind of a tipping point. That's kind of the tipping scale for people is, well, we've got this application. We don't want to upgrade it, or if that's going to be consumed in this other upgrade that we're doing. When you realize the speed to develop of just the newer tools in Java 17 and 21 alone, it's worth your upgrade for that, not to mention the security and risk factors that are also tied to it. Just that alone is worth doing.
Yeah, for sure. Especially since, the security issues that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yep.
You want the latest, greatest, best upgrades on that for your own safety, but also saving time, and which is money on the development side, is huge.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. So if I am then wanting to migrate software as a business owner from Java 8, 11, or even 17 to 21, how do I go about doing that? Can you upskill current staff to make that merge, or should you utilize something like staff augmentation or consulting services? What's the best way to tackle that if you're wanting to migrate?
I have a personal preference of how I've loved to do it for years. And it's never a one size fits all. You've got to address, seek out help from other companies that have done it, seek out consultants, seek out mentors, educate yourself the best that you can. For me, though, I will say, first of all, I'm going to answer this in a couple of parts. The migration from Java 17 to Java 21 is easy. It's very easy. Almost any code, I hate to use blanket statements, but any code you write for Java 17 should be backwards compatible, or forwards compatible rather, with Java 21. There will obviously be some structural changes in Java 21 that won't go backwards. But the features from Java 11 and Java 8 that don't exist, we have changed the way that we do switch statements. Like in Java 21, one of the biggest features that rolled out now is pattern matching for switch statements. And you're going to run into some issues there. Now, how do you go about those migrations? How do you go about that? Well, yeah, at its simplest level, we could download all of our code, install JDK 21, hit compile and see what breaks, and start going through and changing that stuff. And that sounds like a great strategy, except you should probably have a pretty robust test suite around that. So maybe you want to tackle the Java side of it yourself, but this should be a calculated approach with possibly some project management associated with it, definitely some QA associated with it. So if there is some automated process, you have unit tests or you have integration tests or even some end-to-end testing associated with it, you should have a robust test structure in place before you start just breaking stuff to see that it's going to work with Java 21. So there's, at a minimum, I would encourage people, if you don't have that comfort level of the quality and stability of your code, to engage a QA individual or some professional services to come in and help you get that level of stability and function in your code. Just that level of comfort that we're not breaking other stuff. And that's at a minimum. I am a huge fan of mentorship type developer where you bring in somebody who is fluent with Java 21, who's fluent with the upgrades, and let them pair and mentor with your staff. Have them be part of your code reviews. Have them be part of your check-in and merge process. Have them take it in bite-sized chunks. Let them go through and approve all of that stuff and get your skills up to snuff to where you guys can do that on your own. So I'm a huge fan, and I think the fastest time to market, and honestly the cheapest way to do that long term, is to procure those services. So I think that's the best approach for people to do, but it doesn't have to be some long-term thing. You don't have to have a team of 10 consultants come in and completely overhaul your project for you. I mean, you can if you want, but ultimately you want to own that product at the end of the day. Have somebody come mentor you on these changes and have them walk you through this process and these best practices and have seen what's happened with it before and seen what's better. I guarantee if you're sitting on Java 8 or Java 11, you probably need some better CI/CD, configuration management stuff. You probably need some better SysOps, DevOps, practices. You might not be using some of the pipeline build stuff the best way. You may not be doing master or main branch development with feature requests. I mean, these are all design techniques that if you have an application that's sitting out there from 10, 12, 15 years ago, you're probably not up to current with some of the more preferred developer practices, and you could benefit from some mentorship with those. I have never gone into a customer and helped them, or just any job that I've worked at, to do one thing and not found 5 other things that needed some help. I've never, in all the 26 years of me doing development, I've never gone in and said, we just got to do this one thing and that's it. And then we'll turn around and leave. You get in there and you're like, oh, I mean, I'm here to fix this, but that's really broken over there. We should probably not have those bare electrical wires next to the water cooler. Let's fix that while we're in here too. So there's a lot of pros that can come into having some just more seasoned and experience and just a second set of eyes. I mean, you would never, it's like when you go to buy a house, you have an inspection done, you have due diligence on a mortgage, you have all of these things that go through. You don't just go hand a lump sum of cash over to the person you bought the house from and go, we're good, you're good, I'm good, all right, great. No, there's a reason there's this due diligence process that takes place there. And I think having a professional services come in and help you with that is always a good idea. Even if they just give you a roadmap. They come in and lay out a roadmap of what you got to do, what by when and how, and you engage with them that way. But at a minimum, I encourage people to get an outside, view into their world. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes companies make the mistake of thinking it's an either or situation. Like I have to use my staff completely, or I have to go either use a company
Absolutely.
or 100% staff aug or 100% consulting. And they forget that there's this beautiful meld in the middle where people can utilize things like that. Like I can have one person come in who really knows what they're doing and can help bring my staff up to where they need to, or come do a training or come do whatever it is that they need at their company. It's about helping them to get where they need to be, and not really about coming and taking over, but getting your people and your product where it needs to be. And so I think there's a really great middle road that people need to remember and be aware that exists.
It should start off as a consultant, this consultancy, and migrate to this mentorship I'll call it a friendship. That sounds a little too casual. You want to call it a partnership? That's fine. But it should migrate from this consultancy role into this mentorship, partnership role of, let's help you help yourself. Let's help you, give you the skills that you need to go do this and get you shored up and running. And, it's the old proverb of, give a man a fish, teach a man to fish. That whole deal. The fastest way to teach somebody to fish is to do it alongside of them, not go give them a bunch of instructions and just, send them on their way. So,
yeah. And that's one of the things that I've seen a lot, in that it's so helpful to have someone there to kind of help you, or to be a who for you to go to and either get mentorship or just advice, just get a roadmap, like you mentioned. So often I think we feel like I should know everything that I need to do, and I should be the oracle of all knowledge, and you're not, and we can't be, right? And so as companies, you have so many things, especially as a C-level person at your company or a director of development, whatever your role is, that you have a lot to keep track of, to be on top of, and to know what's going on, and to be able to go and have people that you can go to and get information, advice, help, insights, and then to make the best decision for you and your company going forward. I think is huge.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So, and some of the other reasons to upgrade to Java 21, just to go to the most recent version of Java, there were some significant changes in more recent releases. We had Lambda expressions that came out that you may be on an older version that you're not using Lambda. And that may not seem that significant to you. To C-level, what do I care if there's Lambda expressions in there? Well, it actually ties into some of the things that we can do with some of the cloud configuration and some of those things, and incremental changes to releases in our application. There's other things that have rolled out in Java 21, as far as there's like the record patterns project. It's called Project Amber, that enables you to get rid of some of that boilerplate code. So if you're an organization that is really striving for code coverage, like you have a minimum that we're shooting for 90% code coverage. Well, sometimes the POJOs, the plain old Java objects that were out there, people are like, this is generated code. Why am I testing this? Why am I going to write unit tests around generated code? This makes no sense. So then people started lowering the bar. It became a participation trophy for code coverage. Well, should be 70%. It shouldn't be 90%. Well, no, let's 75%. Well, exclude these directories. Well, let's not do this. And it started into this like bartering game about what we should or shouldn't do for test coverage and code coverage, which to go back to a previous point, you want that security of code coverage when you're going to go start doing these upgrades. So this was a sticking point for people about why they didn't have some of that code coverage in there. With Java 21, they finalized, it came out in Java 18, but it wasn't, and that's not a long-term support. Java 21, the record patterns project eliminates a whole bunch of boilerplate code for those, what we call them value objects or business objects that we're passing from our back end, from our data tier up through our application. There's nothing to unit test. It's field level variables that we just hand out. And it's such a nice feature that it's one of those things where Java has really matured. If you're still stuck in this mindset that Java does this old style of development, no, you can write Java code that's even tighter than JavaScript code nowadays, which that was always like the golden goose, the holy grail of what we wanted Java code to look like. But you can write Java code that is just as tight as that and non-typed if you want to go down that path, that makes your code a lot smaller and a lot more condensed. So it's not a verbose language anymore, which that was always kind of a sore item for people, like a sticking point. It's not anymore. So
yeah,
I would say the other big feature in there that a lot of people don't realize, and at first glance, it doesn't seem like a huge feature for you to consider an upgrade for, but in Java 21, we have finalized pattern matching for switch statements. And if you're not familiar with what a switch statement is, it's a conditional statement for like how you run through cases inside of an organization. So if, some software I'm working on right now deals with medical claims, and those medical claims are tied to how you process specific things. And if those claims don't specifically match a very finite or very particular set, then it just gets lost. And so we spend time going through trying to figure out what's the specific case this goes for. Well, there may be things that aren't, call it fuzzy logic or kind of that gray area of development. It's like, if you're in this range, then this case applies to you. If it's, if you're doing orthopedic surgery, it's any orthopedic surgery. Well, it goes over in this bucket. Now I don't have to sit there and go, if you're case 1, 3, 7, 8, 9, and these 34 cases that I'll tie to this, I can have switch case statements that match based off of pattern matching. And I can also do it on strings as well. Historically, that wasn't an option for us to do conditional statements on a string. And again, I'm getting a little deep in the woods here with you about why this is important, but this actually makes the business logic or the rules of our application a lot tighter of a case for us. So, and that's where we spend, that's what the business cares about. Whenever I work on code, a lot of things we do, I sit back and ask myself, does the business care about this? Does the business care that I'm using JPA? Does it care that I'm using Spring? Does it care that I'm using Java 21? No, the CEO isn't there going, oh, I'm glad you're using Java 21. That makes me so happy. No, the decision makers, your key stakeholders are sitting there asking, how can I get this to market with fewer errors? How can I get this faster, cheaper, and better? They want all of those features packed into one. Well, this is one of those features that does that, because I don't have to have all of this hard-coded specific information inside my application to where it can be more of a pattern matching that catches these edge cases for us. And so it is a very important part of how and why we develop code that helps significantly. It's a lot bigger than just saying we can do, pattern matching on switch statements now. It literally is how we go through a lot of the logic inside of our application.
Yeah. So really, why does Java 21 matter for companies is because it makes it deploy your applications better, faster, cheaper, right? Like that's what it's going to do for you.
Absolutely. All the libraries you want to use, every library you want to use has been upgraded to work with Java 21. It's not upgraded to work with Java 11. It's not upgraded to work with Java 8. There are many of the releases that came out this year don't work with anything prior to Java 17. And so we have a lot of libraries now that were all just revisioned that unless you're on Java 17, you don't even get to use that stuff. Your RESTful service, microservice libraries, some of the AI libraries aren't going to work on anything prior to Java 17. Your security libraries that are making like OAuth and SAML and those types of things, they'll support it if they already had it, but people aren't making new features to go on old versions of these libraries. They're not. So,
yeah. Well, it sounds like if companies want to be able to have a safer application, be able to utilize the newest tools and technologies and have the security and to have it be done quicker, faster, cheaper, then they need to look into migrating to Java 21 as quickly as they possibly can.
Well, and I'll tell you, another one to add to that is developer satisfaction.
Yeah.
There's not a developer out there that's going, yay, I get to go work on Java 11. There's not one of them out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's people that are
Java 8. Can I please?
Exactly. Every one of them. I'm on a team right now that is migrating like 10 projects to Spring Boot 3, Spring 6, and Java 17. And right now, everybody is clamoring to go get the new code upgrades because they're like, I finally get to do some of this very cool stuff inside the application. Nobody is super excited about making sure that this 8-year-old process is still trucking along in Java 11. Everybody's like, oh man, let's go utilize these things. Let's go utilize these new features. This is great. It's phenomenal. So yeah.
And developer satisfaction is a huge piece of how well everything's developed and how your staff feels and how efficient things are. So.
Absolutely. Keeping people on staff. Staff is still the hardest part of this job. Writing code is easy. Keeping and retaining good quality staff is the hardest part of this job. So keeping them current, keeping them their skills sharp, keeping them mentored with other people, having that influx removing those headaches is absolutely it's paramount. It's paramount to keeping, a good, healthy company going.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, well, sounds like it's a win-win-win to move to Java 21 for companies. So
it is. Honestly, I would have said, Java 8 to 11, I mean, should you? Yeah, sure. Yeah, great. 11, 17, it was like, oh, this was significant. You should consider this. 21, you are making some huge mistakes if you don't jump to 21. And all of the third-party libraries that are out there, I mean, that alone is worth doing it. There are so many other reasons, but that alone, and then the security of it. They're being very aggressive. And by the way, something that we didn't talk about is they're already talking about the next LTS, and that's about 18 to 24 months out. It's not another 5 year out. Yeah, it's not another 5 year out there. They're getting very, very aggressive with the long-term support release versions of these and pushing them out faster and more frequently. And it's because, like I said, when we started this conversation, they've ironed out a lot of that process that was slow and methodical before. It's now a much more efficient, much faster process. And you're going to see this frequency just go faster. It's not going to slow down.
Yeah.
So something to consider.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your insight into that, Brian. It's been fun to pick your brain about Java 21 and all the reasons why we should migrate and move forward with it. So I think, I know I've learned a lot about it. And if I were in charge of the Java applications, we would be moving right now.
There you go.
But anyway, it's been really good to talk with you about it. And if anyone does have any questions about Java 21 or needs any mentoring or help with any of that as they need some assistance in migrating over, you feel free to reach out to Software Technology Group go to our website at stgconsulting.com. We'd be happy to help answer any questions or start a friendship, like Brian said, anytime.
There you go.
We're here for you. But yeah, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate it.